It's time for The Verdict. The Verdict is a lively discussion of current events and legal issues pertinent to Oklahomans. The Verdict is hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. It's time for The Verdict.
And welcome once again to The Verdict. Good evening. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every Wednesday night and glad you're with us tonight. And Kent, a special show tonight.
A special show tonight and for the next two shows, actually. We are just very grateful to have Governor Brad Henry joining us for the first of two shows. And we're dividing the subject matter up into two parts. So this show we're going to kind of look at where we are now and look backwards, what's happened in the past year. Next Wednesday night, we're going to be with the governor again, and we're going to start at that point and look forward to see what we can expect. Governor Henry's always gracious with his time, and his information will be very valuable to us, and I know our viewers will profit from hearing from him for 2 weeks.
Lots of issues to discuss with Governor Brad Henry. It's next on The Verdict. Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce our guest.
How do you introduce a guest that's been with you 9 times already? Well, you just kind of do it. We're so honored to have the Honorable Brad Henry, the governor of the state of Oklahoma, with us for now making his 10th appearance on The Verdict. Governor Henry, of course, is a Shawnee native, did his undergraduate and law work at the University of Oklahoma, is the 26th governor of the state of Oklahoma. He served a number of years in the state senate before being elected to his position as governor. He has now been in office 2 years. His lovely wife, Kim, the First Lady, they have 3 daughters, and the family is just prospering at the mansion. Governor, welcome back to The Verdict. We're really pleased you could join us again.
Thank you very much. You guys are going to have to start paying me to come on. I'm on here so often.
Governor, thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. We have not had you on since the November election, and the Republicans made some serious gains in November. How does that affect you in your office, and what cooperation will there be between the two bodies?
Well, first of all, let me say, Mick, I want to commend you on your leadership as mayor and the passage of the hotel motel tax. You did a great job. You know, the November elections don't change my agenda one bit. I've always governed with a bipartisan approach, an approach to try to bring both sides of the aisle to the table, build a consensus. The important thing is that we find common ground that we can all agree on to move Oklahoma forward. So, you know, my agenda doesn't change. My agenda is still about building the best educational system in the nation, building the best health care delivery system in the nation so Oklahomans can have accessible, quality, affordable health care, and job creation, creating good jobs, good paying jobs to keep our children here in Oklahoma. That agenda doesn't change. And my approach with the legislature doesn't change. You know, I've had some of my biggest battles with the Democratic leaders in the legislature, and I've worked very well with Republicans in the past. So, and I've worked well with both sides. I think we just continue to move forward with this positive agenda for Oklahoma.
But certainly the Republicans taking control of the House, they're going to expect more say in what happens at the state government.
Well, they've got it.
Is there going to be a stalemate on some issues?
I don't think so. You know, I've already had a very good meeting with Speaker-designate Todd Hyatt, Speaker-designate of the House of Representatives, and we've pledged to work together in a bipartisan fashion. You know, bipartisanship is a two-way street. It works both ways. I'm reaching out to the Republicans. I expect the Republicans to reach out to me. I expect the Democrats to continue to be very involved in the process. Again, we'll just work to bring everybody to the table, find that common ground. I just don't foresee a stalemate, not from my perspective anyway. And if we run into problems, then we just have to roll up our sleeves, try to put the party labels aside, and think about, concentrate on what is best for Oklahoma.
And what happens in the state Senate 2 years from now? Are you concerned about the Democratic Party losing control there?
You know, I try not to spend too much time analyzing the political landscape. I mean, my focus is on, as I said, education and healthcare and job creation. It's on an agenda for a better Oklahoma. And that's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm focused on, building a better Oklahoma, trying to bring everybody together, finding that common ground. You know, we're not going to agree 100% on all the issues. There's no way. I mean, we'd be nuts to all have the same opinion, and the people ought to be very worried if there's not some discussion and debate at the state capitol. That's what makes this system great. But it's important that we sit down and try to find that common ground and build a consensus, and that's what I'll do. I'll let the political pundits like you guys worry about what happens in 2 years.
Let's stay focused a little bit on the November election because, and speaking of focus, you appeared on the 5th show of The Verdict. This is show 199. You appeared on the 5th show.
Wow, I must have been about 12 years old.
Well, you do. You just look great both then and now.
Okay, thank you.
The subject of that show was what you were focused on at the time, and it's the same subject that was passed into law by a substantial margin by the people of Oklahoma in November, and that's the education lottery. In other words, in April of '01, you were advocating, not as governor or as a gubernatorial candidate, but as a state senator, the passage for the benefit of education. Well, congratulations, you won that by a significant margin, as, by the way, you predicted in April of 2001 you would. Tell our viewers when education can start seeing a flow of dollars from the lottery to education.
Well, first of all, this is an issue, as you point out, that I've been working on for a number of years, and in so doing, I had an opportunity to study virtually every other state lottery in the nation, and we took the best provisions from the most successful state lotteries around the country and incorporated them into Oklahoma's version that the people passed by a 65% margin this past November, and I'm very proud of that. What I realized when I worked on this issue in the Senate was that it was going to take a governor to really get this to a vote of the people. And so that was one of my pledges when I campaigned for governor. I would do everything I could to get this to a vote of the people, and I'm very proud that we lived up to that promise. Now, the question is, when can we expect to receive money for education? We anticipate that it will probably take close to a year to get this thing set up, maybe a little more. Tennessee was the last state to implement a lottery. It took them 14 months to get their lottery in place. The process is I've got to, and I'm working very diligently on finding the best people who are beyond reproach, who can maintain the security and the integrity of the lottery to serve on the Lottery Commission. I get to appoint 7 lottery commissioners, and they have to be confirmed by the Senate. Then the Lottery Commission will pull together, and they'll begin the process of putting this thing together. I anticipate they will engage in a nationwide search for an executive director. We want the best person we can find with honor and integrity to operate this education lottery. We want somebody with experience and a track record, proven track record of being able to appropriately and efficiently operate a lottery with great honor and integrity. So the Lottery Commission will begin to work on that. They'll begin to hire employees for the commission itself. They will begin to solicit requests for proposals from potential vendors, select vendors, and begin to get the infrastructure in place, the machines in convenience stores and other locations all across the state. All of that just takes time, you know, and we do extensive criminal background checks on every single commissioner and employee of the Lottery Commission. Those things take a little bit of time too.
But certainly you've done the math. At what point could a teacher in Oklahoma expect to see an extra dollar on their paycheck as a result of the lottery?
Well, we hope anyway that by next fall, the fall of 2005, we will sell the first lottery ticket, and the revenues will start flowing at that time. So, you know, very shortly after that, we ought to see those revenues for education.
Let me just throw something in. I couldn't resist going back and looking at the tape of our show in April of '01, and you predicted, you missed it by 3 points, Governor. You got a 65% margin at the polls. I think there was a poll out at that time that predicted it would passed by 68%, and you said, we think we'll do just about that. Well, you did just about that. Your prediction was pretty accurate.
Wow. Well, I don't know what to say about that. I'm a good guesser, I guess.
Well, and you obviously stay focused.
Let's jump in here and get us to a break. Our guest is Governor Brad Henry. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers and our guest this week, Governor Brad Henry. Governor, this past November, the elections on the Gaming Regulation Act. What is an update that you can give us now here in January of '05? What's the relationship with the tribes, and when can people start to see some of the changes that took effect because of the election?
Well, I think very quickly. In fact, some of the changes may already be out there. The compacts, the general concept of the compact has been approved by the federal government. Under the law, the people voted on this overall general compact that governs this process. The tribes have to then agree to it, and then it's submitted to the Department of the Interior, which is responsible for implementing the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act at the federal level. The feds have to approve it, and then tribes can begin, and several of those are already in that process, and we think I mean, there's just nothing to slow it down at this point. We believe that we'll start receiving revenues as soon as this spring. I mean, I think here in just a few months, and the tracks will begin to get their games online, and some of them are already in the process, but I think they will be very closely behind the tribes.
Will this 2005 session of the legislature have to pass any implementing legislation, or is it already accomplished?
No, they shouldn't. I mean, I maybe something might come up that I haven't anticipated, but it's all right there in the law that the people voted on. There shouldn't be any need for any implementing legislation. The compact is very detailed and governs the entire process. That gives the state of Oklahoma, for the first time, the opportunity to have some regulatory oversight over tribal gaming, which is burgeoning all across this state. At last count, more than 85 tribal gaming facilities throughout the state of Oklahoma. And for the first time, we have some oversight, and we get some information from the tribes. For the first time ever, we get to share in the revenue, and we give some parity to our racetracks to help the horse industry that just allows the racetracks to play the same kinds of electronic games that the tribes are playing.
How will Oklahoma, insofar as what gaming opportunities are made available to its citizens, compare with the surrounding states once the State Question 712 and the alteration to the gaming devices are in place? How will Oklahoma compare to the surrounding states insofar as should this improve tourism for the gaming tourist, or just bring us up to a par?
Well, I think there's no question it will improve tourism for that group of individuals, and especially in surrounding states who enjoy the gaming atmosphere and the gaming casinos. You've already seen many of the tribes around the state making substantial investments, hundreds of millions of dollars, to build casinos and hotels and golf courses. They're building resort areas, and they're getting very positive feedback. I've not been yet, but the feedback I'm hearing has been very positive. I don't know precisely what other states are doing, but I think that Oklahoma will be a destination point for gaming tourists, because we have more opportunities, because we have more tribes that are engaged in gaming, and this will be good for economic development in Oklahoma. It will be good for the economy. It'll be good for education, because the money we now get to share in that money. We weren't going to be able to slow it down. We just wanted to be able to participate with the tribes. And my hat's off to the tribal leaders that sat down at the table with us and said, we want to help the state of Oklahoma.
Well, how does the gaming affect the lottery? Do you have a worry that if gaming does really, really well that the lottery won't do as well?
No, in fact, I think they complement each other. I mean, they're very different forms of gaming. The lottery is not generally one of the things that you get instant feedback from and instant gratification, whereas the electronic machines and other kinds of gaming that the tribes have does. But I think they complement each other. The tribes aren't worried that the lottery will take money away from them, and we're not worried that the tribal gaming will take money away from the lottery. I think when people come up from Texas and Arkansas and New Mexico and Kansas and Missouri and the surrounding states to engage in activities at one of the tribal casinos, they'll stop at our convenience stores and they'll buy lottery tickets, and you know, when the jackpots get high, interest will come from all the surrounding states. Just like when in the surrounding states the jackpots get high, Oklahomans cross the borders in droves to go play the lottery in other states. So I think they complement each other, and all the evidence seems to point to that. I'm not too concerned.
Well, which of the two forms of gambling supports education at a higher rate? Would $10 spent on in a slot machine have a different ratio to $10 spent on lottery tickets?
You know, that's kind of a difficult question because the racetracks are involved, and the racetracks and the tribes certainly create more jobs and more job opportunities. In terms of just the sheer percentage of your dollar, if you spend $1 on a lottery ticket versus $1 on a slot machine or at a racetrack or at a tribe, a higher percentage of that dollar spent on the lottery will actually go to education. But there are all kinds of other positive impacts from having the racetracks. I mean, if Remington Park shut down in Oklahoma City, it would have a mayor, you know,
Absolutely.
you don't want that to happen. It would have a tremendously detrimental effect on our economy.
So what you're saying is there's some tourism dollars associated with the gaming that aren't necessarily associated with the lottery.
That's right. That's right. I mean, people will come to Oklahoma to play the lottery when the jackpots get high, but they won't spend as much money as they will when they come to Oklahoma from other states to the racetracks or to the gaming facilities.
Governor, 2004 has got to be a good year for you and for the state of Oklahoma. You put forth 2 or 3 significant proposals to a vote of the people, and I believe all of them passed. We've talked about a couple of them. But for our viewers, would you kind of review 2004 and tell us what are the highlights in your mind about the way Oklahoma has been advanced this last year?
Well, you know, you have to go back a couple of years and realize that we faced the largest budget shortfall of our state history. The economy was down. I think the confidence of the consumers was low, and we were able to, really in historic fashion, bring together Republican and Democrat leaders of both houses of the legislature and the governor's office in an historic 5-way agreement to resolve the budget without increasing taxes, plug that nearly $700 million shortfall, and we didn't cut education or health care. Those were priority areas. Now you sort of fast forward, we've made it through that, and the good thing about what's going on in 2004 is the economy has picked up, our revenues are increasing at the state, consumer confidence is higher, people feel better about what's happening, more jobs are being created, whereas the last year we were losing net jobs in Oklahoma. This year we're creating net jobs, and it's a difference of about 6,000 jobs versus what we gained this year versus what we were losing a year or so ago. So things are really picking up. Now, as far as my agenda specifically, we had some very good successes, and I don't take credit for those. I have so many great people that I've surrounded myself with that make this happen. There are so many legislative leaders that helped make this happen. But back last November, there were 9 questions on the state ballot. 5 of those were from my agenda. 2 related to the education lottery. 1 related to the tribal gaming, the Tribal Gaming Regulation Act and the racetracks and sharing the revenue for education. 1 related to our health care system, and the health care initiative. It contains some very important tax cuts designed to stimulate job growth in Oklahoma, and it had a a specific tax increase on the tobacco products. The tobacco tax, we specifically increased that to provide about $150 million annually for our healthcare delivery system. We'll leverage that with federal dollars. We believe that will result in about $400 million annually for the healthcare system, $4 billion over 10 years.
I need to jump in here. We are out of time. Governor, thank you for coming on this show number 199. I know you're going to be back, and we'll tape another show, and it'll air next Wednesday night at 9:30, so thank you for that as well.
Well, it's always my pleasure to be here, and I look forward to coming back.
Thanks again.
Kent and I will have a final word when we return. Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and we're here to wrap up the first show with Governor Henry.
Really glad to have the governor on tonight. And Mick, I've heard the phrase over and over again, timing is everything. We see reports of Oklahoma's teachers' salaries being down near the bottom, if not at the bottom, nationally. And what kicks in just about that time but the Education Lottery and the Tribal Gaming Act, which should contribute funds to education as well, both of which should have an effect on teacher salaries. So it looks to me like, once again, Oklahoma's been fortunate, and the people of Oklahoma have been far-sighted to approve some things that may benefit all of us, particularly our children in the future.
Well, we have some internet website information that we try to give to our guests. And you can find out more about Governor Brad Henry or contact him through that website, GovernorBradHenry.com. And of course, you can always find more information on this television show and give us input at TheVerdict.tv. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We will see you next week on another edition of The Verdict.